Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Squat Cobbler. I am Kelly at KELLYTHUL on Twitter and Instagram. And with me, as always,
I'm Dr. Mike at Official Pagan on everything. Make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, buying t-shirts, leaving comments, sending us samples of your bodily fluids, whatever it is you need to do to help us get to that magical 1,000 subscriber mark where Kelly is launching an OnlyFans.
so there's new. Haven't had to crack out the lie counter lately on our videos. So
Well, I don't know if
good.
you've noticed this, sir, but if you go on social media, OnlyFans is trying really hard. So, for anybody who doesn't know, who just thinks I'm making reference to a porn site, OnlyFans is not a porn site. It is a Patreon-like site, but they don't have the same content restrictions. So it has become largely associated with adult content because of that. So on Patreon and things like that, you are very limited in the type of content that you can share out with your subscribers. OnlyFans does not have those same restrictions. So they are trying to move away from that image a little, not stopping that because I'm sure that's a gigantic moneymaker for them, but really pushing the idea that, hey, we have other stuff too. So there's all kinds of OnlyFans ads popping up, like support your favorite band or DJ or comedian and all this. So, Tony and I have been talking about jumping on OnlyFans. How long do you think it'll be before a Squat Cobbler goes the OnlyFans route?
Well, we've got to keep our massive industries under control, and our hands are full with the boom in the t-shirt market, and so
That's
just trying to manage that is tough. I would think the prerequisite for a good OnlyFans is to have fans, and so we probably need to work on that part. Keep trying to build that up a little bit more, but maybe let you guys blaze the trail with it a little bit and see how it goes, and then we can learn from what works and doesn't work for you, and then we can explore OnlyFans. But yeah, I think getting fans will be the key. So today we're going to talk about iiRcade a little bit. Interesting.
Yes.
Many times we've mentioned on this show, it's a good time to love retro gaming because you've got a bunch of companies out there trying different stuff, putting out different products, all very cool stuff. And iiRcade, during a time when shipping costs are going up, it's difficult to get chips. There's all sorts of supply line problems. There's all sorts of labor problems. All of this creating pressures that companies are indicating are forcing them to raise the price of their goods. iiRcade turns around and drops all their main cabinets down $100. Has a sale going. Pretty bold move. What do you think of that?
It's a big move. It reminded me of the PlayStation launch. I don't know if you remember that, where Sony came out and instead of giving a big press conference like they were supposed to at E3, the Sony rep just announced a price which was $100 less than their original advertised retail price was going to be, which meant Sony was taking a gigantic loss on each system sold, but it crushed all of their competitors from that generation of systems, so it was worth it for them in the end.
Yeah, and you've got to assume that while there's probably a healthy profit margin built in initially on pricing of these, you trim $100 off of it, and your margin's gonna narrow. It's gonna narrow probably significantly. It is interesting that it depends who you want to kind of pit them up against. If it's them and Arcade One Up, who's obviously kind of the big player in this market, iiRcade brings with it, the multicade environment and the ability to buy more licensed properties from their store to put on their device.
Yeah, and that's really where iiRcade is different because they're almost it's a multicade, but not in the same way, in my opinion, that an X Games is, because they're really selling you games like a console.
Yeah, although and At Games has, with the Legends ecosystem and the app store, the FX and all the App Store environment that they have, where you can actually purchase titles there, and then certainly now with this pinball stuff, There is just so many tables becoming available for purchase in packs and those type of things on At Games, that's becoming another revenue generator where you don't have to mail hundreds of pounds of equipment across the country to make a little bit of dough. And so I just, it's the thing I wish we could find a way to get a better handle on, is to understand the real kind of market penetration of iiRcade versus At Games versus Arcade One Up. I think we all kind of know that Arcade One Up is the dominant force and has probably the biggest footprint. But it would be interesting to kind of see how much of the market those other two have, because those other two have the other income stream where they've got they're selling stuff to run on their device.
Yeah, and it is interesting because it does make them sort of a different animal than an iiRcade or an At Games, because they are selling you arcade cabinets. So while Arcade One Up has, and it's been reported, the numbers seem a little murkier for iiRcade and At Games, but vastly ahead of them in overall cabinet sales would be Arcade One Up. Just during, the first stages of the pandemic, they moved something like 1 million units. That being said, though, these are not, and obviously you can add games to these. It takes people, 2 seconds to hack anything and add games to it. But they're not selling you more games. They're selling multiple cabinets. Yep. So it is kind of a different thing, though.
Yep. Yeah, there comes just those all come at a big price point, and those all come taking up a footprint. And there's a number of people that, have rooms dedicated to an arcade. There's one of them on the show. And so some of us can do that. Some of us, it's a bit of a bigger challenge. But it is interesting to kind of continue to get lifetime value out of the customer. I think it becomes some of the parts of the model for At Games and iiRcade certainly position them better for continuing to say, once I've got that cabinet in there, I can continue to get a revenue stream from the folks. So it'll be interesting to see. But I don't know if it's just distribution or what, but it is, you can't, it's not too difficult to stumble across an Arcade One Up machine in a huge number of venues. There's all sorts of different places where it's a little trickier to come across that At Games. Or I don't even really know, does iiRcade do much retail at all? Is it all?
I don't think so. So most of the big box retailers, and this is where Arcade One Up wins as far as retail shelf space goes, and something that so many people have commented on in YouTube videos. Their competitors make fun of them, saying, we're not a furniture company, whereas Arcade One Up is all about making you build these cabinets and everything. But they are, in fact, a furniture company, so they know how to deconstruct and flat pack these, which is what you have to do to get into stores like Walmart. So the fact that you can't do that for the other systems is why they don't have that same shelf space.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because when my Legends Ultimate showed up, it's like I was having a refrigerator delivered. So it's a big, it had some girth to it. I mean, I appreciated it. There's a video, we'll link to it in the description here where I put it together. And it was nice because the parts that were flat packed were pretty easy to put together. Instructions are great, but really the whole top of the system came assembled. The monitor and the whole top part.
Which is exactly the way that all of the competitors seem to do it. iiRcade does it that way. So does Unico for their Neo Geo models.
Yeah. Which is nice. It's one of the trickier parts of the construction to make sure all that kind of comes together. But that generates a lot of packing space. I mean, you can't, if you're sending that assembled, you got a big box. You're going to definitely have to deal with that. But yeah, it's, and they do talk about iiRcade. They invested more in the gaming hardware. So best, I think most people won't argue in terms of joysticks, whether it's a fight stick, whether it's At Games Legends, whether it's the Arcade One Up stuff. The iiRcade joysticks are higher end, or they're kind of probably, in terms of bringing a cabinet into the house and not going out aftermarket and buying a high end joystick. This seems to be the strongest hardware from there. So props to them for that. And display's strong too. Sound system, I think, is a notch above the competitors there. But so they've got better controllers, pretty good sound going. Can add some games, chop it $100 off the device. It'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Now, if you were in the market for something like an iiRcade, they do offer a few different models. There's their standard iiRcade look. There is a black cabinet so that you can add your own artwork to it. Then they sell artwork. The first one that's available, I believe, would be the Double Dragon side panels that you just add the artwork to your black cabinet for that. There's a Dragon's Lair, and of course, there's a new one that was recently unveiled, which I think you were saying you would be the most interested in.
Yeah, Mutant League Football, which I was blissfully unaware of until doing a little bit of research for the show, because while Mike does all his hard work for his other horror show and stuff like that, I still put in the time for you folks here. And so in doing a little bit of research, I was looking through the iiRcade site, and I really wasn't familiar with Mutant League Football at all. And loved the look of the cabinet, loved the look of the game, loved the concept. Way back in the Amiga days, when I was doing stuff with Amiga, I think it was called Brutal Sport Football was the game, and it was a really fun Amiga game. This is like that on steroids. It's got a lot more stuff going on. The cabinet art looks super cool. So I would consider that. That definitely caught my eye. I also, the black, just going with the black and coming up with what I want to do with it, could be fun as well. Because again, I'd probably bog panda it up because one of us is dedicated to the show and doing stuff. And so we could do that. It's not like I've got a cool logo I could put on there, somebody put together, but I'll stumble through it and do what I can. Yeah, I would think either the kind of roll your own and the black would be one to go. But the Mutant League Football looks really cool. And I was very pleased to find out it's also available on the Switch. So I'll probably be making a purchase pretty quick here to at least try it out on the Switch. But that looks like a game that would be really enjoyable on more of an arcade console or arcade setup.
Yeah, I haven't played Mutant League Football in quite some time. I remember enjoying it though, and I don't like football games. But for a football game, I enjoyed it. I'm more of a basketball game guy, NBA Jam specifically, and then more later discovering Basket Brawl, which has become one of my favorites in a game that I just go to on every system at this point now, but especially playing it with the Atari Fight Stick.
Yeah. Yep. They're good. And of course, back in the day in '64, the NFL Blitz was another kind of nice football bash 'em and play game too. But this one, I hadn't seen it before. It looks super cool. Don't know if I want a dedicated cabinet for it. Gonna have to wait on that part. Think about it. It is kind of nice. I mean, they've done a nice job on iiRcade's part to kind of let you mix and match to what you want to do, because you can basically buy it as a tabletop unit and just use the top part of the system, put it on a table and do that. You can get it with the riser and the stand, or just the stand, which serves as a riser, and then you've got something that simulates more of a typical arcade machine. And so it's good to have those options. I still like I think the At Games cabinet looks cooler and beefier.
I will say the Mutant League Football cabinet looks great, like the artwork and everything. The actual design of the iiRcade cabinets, though, I don't love.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is, but it's kind of choppy, and it just doesn't have some of those art lines that you're used to seeing on arcade systems that At Games nailed really well, and a lot of the arcade one-up games do as well. So we'll see on that, but it kind of, it's less noticeable if you're using it as a tabletop, but when you actually put it together then it's artwork's cool, but the overall form factor, I don't know. But it's $100 less than a lot of other things. So
yeah,
and
especially when everything else is going up, and specifically Arcade 1-Up in particular, their newer announced cabinets are a much higher price point than people are expecting due to shipping issues and things like that.
Yep. So challenges. So we just wanted to kind of jump in, talk a little bit about that. There's a lot of stuff going on. We've got probably a bunch more shows coming up on different things that are happening. But any last thoughts on iiRcade before we call it a show, Mike?
No, between the Mutant League cabinet, which I do think looks great, and this sale, I think this is the most I've really seriously looked at iiRcade. Just because it didn't have a ton of appeal to me. If I was going to go with the multicade, which I am with the mini for at games eventually when it's available.
In theory.
Yeah, theoretically going with the mini. If I was going with, a multicade like that, I mean, technically the arcade one-ups are multicades, but there's a handful of games on each. If I was going to go with a larger multicade at games would be the way that I would go. This was the first time, though, that I seriously considered iiRcade as an option.
Yep. Yeah, me too, mostly. And it's the first time I've seriously considered a tabletop. Because I started to go, I'm not sure I want to do that full form factor. But I could actually see that Mutant League tabletop working pretty cool. So something to think about.
Definitely.
All right, cool. All right, well, as Mike mentioned at the beginning of the show, be sure to like, subscribe, hit notifications, buy t-shirts, do all that good stuff. We appreciate it. We do really appreciate the folks that tune in on a regular basis, and those that have subscribed. Thank you very much. And thanks for watching, folks.
Thanks, everybody.